The lawyer's office had a smell that was like leather, and it felt like disappointment was in the air. My entire family was sitting in those mahogany chairs, and everyone was trying to look really sad, but I think they were all secretly thinking about how much money they would get. Then Mr. Peterson said something that surprised us all. Frank's will is really strange, He pushed a single sheet of paper across his desk. The whole thing, the company, the money, and all the things Frank owns, which is $10 million, will go to the person who figures out this problem. The paper had one line of text, a 256-character string of nonsense. My cousin Marcus actually laughed. He said he left us a crypto puzzle? That is really funny? That was Uncle Frank for you. He built Cipher Shield security from the ground up. He sold encryption to companies, like the ones on the Fortune 500 list, and it seems he died the same way he lived, making everything really complicated for no good reason. Uncle Frank always did things his way, and that is just how it was with him and Cipher Shield security. Within hours, our family WhatsApp group was flooded with messages. Marcus had hired a team of experts from Silicon Valley. Aunt Linda got her son-in-law involved because he works with computers. My mother, who does not like technology, even started searching the internet for ways to figure out codes. As for me, I went home and just lay there looking at the ceiling and thinking about all those Sundays when we had dinner together and Frank would talk to anyone who would listen to him. Frank would always find someone to talk to at our Sunday dinners. So I was there about 43 miles from the coast, and people would always get up to leave when I started talking about it. The location was 29.77 for 9 north, 90 for .3615 west on the map. My depth finder said the water was 18 feet deep at that spot. I would tell people that the GPS coordinates were really important to know. The GPS coordinates were 29.77 for 9 north, 90 for .3615 west. Those fishing stories, God, they were something. The man could take a fishing trip that lasted 10 minutes and turn it into this huge 2-hour deal. He would pull out his notebook and show you all these details. He had the date, the time, the coordinates, how deep the water was, and what the barometric pressure was. It was pretty funny. We used to tease him that he spent time writing down all this stuff about his fishing trips than he actually spent fishing. Those fishing stories, the man really loved his fishing trips. 2 weeks went by. Marcus hackers were using these powerful computers. Aunt Linda's son-in-law seemed to have given up, was drinking during the day. The lawyer told us that we had 90 days before the whole thing was donated to charity. I did not sleep. Something bothered me about those stories. From Frank. Frank was not someone who liked to know everything. He liked to know everything in a very exact way. He would always talk about the numbers, and he would always say them in the same order. Those numbers that Frank would say, they were always the ones, and he would always say them in the same order. It was really something that stuck with me about Frank and his stories. At 3 a.m. I got a map. I started working on it. I was writing down every fishing spot that he had ever talked about. When I looked at the map, I saw that the places I had marked were along the Gulf Coast. They did not look like they were just picked at random. It looked like they were actually making a shape. It was really weird. It kind of looked like the fishing spots were forming letters on the map. My heart was racing as I grabbed the numbers. 18 feet, 97 feet, 114 feet. These were not really depths. There is no way the gulf of water can go from 18 feet to 97 feet in that spot. I decided to look into this. I converted the numbers. 18 in ASCII is a special character, but 97 is the letter and 114 is the letter R. The dates, I'm telling you, the dates. Jesus Christ, the dates are really something. This guy always caught his fish on weird dates. He would say something like, I caught one on March 3rd, And then the next time he would tell the story, it would be I caught a big one on June 6th. The dates would jump ahead by 3 months. It is like he was using some kind of code, like those Caesar cipher shifts, where you replace each letter with a letter a few positions down the line. The dates are always changing, like the story, and it is pretty weird. The dates, I mean, Jesus Christ, the date stopped. My hands were shaking as I worked on it. The coordinate pairs I was looking at gave me letters. The depth I was dealing with gave me characters. The dates I found told me how to shift the whole coordinate thing. It took me a time, 6 whole hours. I drank 3 big pots of coffee. I even thought about every fishing story I could remember to help me figure it out. The password was beautiful in its simplicity. Only Felistiner inherits 1957. Betty 1957 was the year he started his company. His wife was Betty. She died before I was born. He never married again after Betty died. I typed the password into the encrypted file that the lawyer had sent to me. The file opened away. The encrypted file was not a problem for me to open. Inside was another message that said, "Congratulations, you did a job listening. Cipher Shield needs more than just someone who is smart. It needs someone who knows that every number is connected to a person and every person has feelings. Cipher Shield needs someone like that. To get what belongs to you, you have to answer these questions." The first question really got to me, made my throat feel tight. It was this: what was Betty's favorite flower, and why did I plant Betty's flowers every year on Betty's birthday? I smiled through my tears. I knew this one. He told me, probably a dozen times, while everyone else was scrolling their phones. 3 weeks had. The server room looked like a place where people plan cyber attacks. My cousin Derek had brought in a team of experts who test how secure computer systems are. They were from Seattle. These people were young and had tattoos on their necks. They drank a lot of energy drinks, used abbreviations that I did not know. My Aunt Helen did more. She got her friends who used to work for the NSA to help. She said they had experience with security, but I did not think that Uncle Roy's software for managing construction projects was like a secret that the country needed to protect. The server room was now full of people. Like this, it was a change. The rules were easy to understand. We had to come up with a 128-character key. We could use one server, try as many times as we wanted. There were no limits on how times we could try, and we did not have to wait for a certain amount of time between attempts. All we saw was a cursor blinking on the screen, waiting for someone to type in the code. Roy had worked hard to build Iron Forge Defense Logistics into a company that was worth $10 million. Now the whole thing was locked behind that blinking cursor teasing us. Iron Forge Defense Logistics was really something. It was frustrating that it was out of our reach. The cursor just kept blinking, waiting for us to figure out the sequence of characters for the 128-character key. Derek said that we have tried every date during our family meeting. We actually have family meetings now. We have tried all the dates, Derek said. The dates people were born, the dates people died. When the company was started, and the dates my dad was in the service. My team is working on every password that was stolen over the 10 years, Aunt Helen said, giving Derek a challenging look. We are making lists of passwords called rainbow tables to see if any of them match. If Derek used the password somewhere else, my team will find the password. We will look at every password to see if Derek reused any of them anywhere. I was sitting in the corner feeling pretty useless. What did I know about hacking really? I teach history to high school students. I can barely even reset my own router. I just kept showing up watching Roy and the others work because it was Roy. Roy is the man who paid for my college education when my dad could not afford it. He is the one who hired me every summer to file papers just so I would have some money to spend. The hackers were discussing entropy and key space, how long it would take to figure out the code, by using brute force calculations. One of them said at this rate, we would need about 400 years to try every combination of the space and entropy. The hackers thought that trying every combination of the space and entropy would take a very long time. That night I was having a time focusing on the papers I had to grade. My mind was thinking about the Sunday barbecues we have at Roy's place. Roy is always in charge of the grill. He always has a Corona beer in his hand. Then he starts talking about Vietnam. The family always breaks up. The kids go to the pool, and the grown-ups check their phones. I always end up standing by the grill, listening to Roy talk about Vietnam. I do not really want to hear about it, but I feel like I have to be polite. I just stand there and nod my head. Sunday barbecues at Roy's place are always like that. He would say the names of all these people every time, like he was praying. Martinez, Rodriguez, Thompson, Washington. He would go through all 12 names. He would talk about Bobby Martinez from El Paso and the girl he liked, Maria. Then he would talk about Carlos Rodriguez from Tucson and his girl Sophia. He would also talk about Jimmy Thompson from Dallas and the nurse he liked, Betty. He did this every time. It was like a routine for him, saying the names of people like Martinez and Rodriguez and Thompson and Washington. There were 12 men. They were always in the order. He would talk about the towns where they grew up, the girls they loved, and the things they wanted to do with their lives. Most of these men did not make it back home. The ones who did make it back, Roy had not heard from in a very long time, decades ago. Roy still remembered every single one of the 12 men. Something clicked at 2 a.m. I woke up fast and sat up in bed. Then I grabbed my laptop. I started typing down everything that I could remember about the thing that clicked. I was typing fast because I did not want to forget anything about this thing that clicked at 2 a.m. Bobby Martinez, El Paso, Maria, Carlos Rodriguez, Tucson, Sophia. Jimmy Thompson, Dallas, Betty. First letters, BMEM, CRTS, J-T-D-B. My hands were shaking as I went through all 12 of them. There was Washington from Houston. He was with his girl Annie. Then I saw Peterson from Austin. He was dating Linda. Chen from San Antonio. He wrote to Jennifer every day. The code was 128 characters long. It was made by taking the letter of each of the following things: the first name, the last name, the hometown, and the girlfriend of each soldier. There were 4 characters for each soldier. There were 12 soldiers in total. The order of the characters was always the same. This code was hidden in sight. It was in all those long stories that nobody really wanted to listen to. I drove to the office at 3 a.m. The security guard knew me by now. He just waved me through. The server room was empty. Even the hackers who worked on the servers had to sleep. I sat at the terminal. The cursor on the terminal was blinking at me like a heartbeat. I was staring at the server terminal, and that cursor, I typed slowly and carefully. The MEMCRTSJDTB was what I wrote, all the way through. My finger was hovering over the enter key. This was not about figuring out a message. This was about Roy making sure his company went to someone he trusted, someone who had stood by the grill with him and listened to him talk about his brothers every year for many years and really heard what Roy had to say about his brothers. Roy wanted his company to go to someone who understood him and what his brothers meant to him. I pressed the enter key. The words "access granted" were there on the screen, in big green letters. Below it, a message. You remembered them. I knew someone would. Take care of Iron Forge. Take care of their memory. Roy, the chief financial officer, looked really ready to throw his laptop out the window. 6 weeks, he said, rubbing his eyes that were all red. The chief financial officer was clearly frustrated. 6 weeks, and the best cybersecurity firm in the country still could not figure out a password field. The chief financial officer just did not understand why the cybersecurity firm was having much trouble with the password field. This is really simple. It is a black screen. On this screen, there is a text input where you can type something. It also says enter password in text. That is all you see. There is no place to put your username. There are no hints to help you. There is nothing on the screen. This is just like Dimitri. Dimitri is being Dimitri. He is brilliant. He is also very paranoid. Dimitri is impossible to deal with until the end. Dimitri and his ways are like this screen, a black screen with a single text input and enter password in white text. The fintech company that Dimitri owned, Pythagoras Systems, handled an amount of money, billions of dollars in transactions. The people on the board of Pythagoras Systems were getting really worried. They had a problem because they could not get into Dimitri's master admin account for Pythagoras Systems. This meant they could not make updates to Pythagoras Systems. It was bad that Dimitri had $10 million of his money stuck, but the bigger issue was that Pythagoras Systems was losing value every single day that they could not get access to Dimitri's master admin account. For Pythagoras Systems, the lead security consultant said, "We have tried every message that he ever wrote, every single function, every variable that he used. We have looked at the coding patterns that he follows and the algorithms that he likes to use. He has algorithms that he uses a lot. They even brought in his professors from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. One of them spent 3 days talking about Dimitri's obsession with mathematics. This professor was convinced that the password had something to do with number systems. For they found nothing about the password and Babylonian mathematics and the sexagesimal number systems that Dimitri was obsessed with. I did not say much during these meetings. What could I have said that would have made a difference? They talked about SHA to 5-6 hashes and Fibonacci sequences. My mind kept wandering back to Christmas dinners. I thought about Dimitri, who could have eaten at any restaurant in the world. He always wanted to cook the recipes his grandmother used to make Baba's honey cake, he would say, carrying it out like a prize. To make Baba's honey cake, you need 2 cups of flour. You have to bake Baba's honey cake at 350 degrees. Then you have to bake Baba's honey cake for 45 minutes. It is very important to bake Baba's honey cake for 45 minutes. You cannot bake Baba's honey cake for 44 minutes or 46 minutes. It has to be 45 minutes for Baba's honey cake. We would all nod politely while he started telling the story. How his grandmother measured everything by hand, how she survived the siege of Leningrad with these recipes, memorized how each one of these recipes saved their family in different ways. Then he would pull out his notebook and show us the changes he made to these recipes. He wrote down the measurements. He even went down to the gram. He had notes on how to adjust the temperature for different altitudes, and he had timing adjustments for different humidity levels. My sister always says that Uncle Dimitri, you have made cooking like math. She thinks, Uncle Dimitri, you make it too complicated, like solving a problem. Uncle Dimitri, my sister just wants Uncle Dimitri to cook food. But Uncle Dimitri, you always make it seem like Uncle Dimitri is doing some kind of science experiment. He would just smile. Everything is mathematics. 1, even love. The memory hit me during week 7. I was sitting in another meeting that seemed like a waste of time. We were talking about security, and the team was discussing these kinds of attacks that use something called quantum computing. That is when I interrupted them. The recipes. Everyone turned around. The chief financial officer let out a sigh. What kind of recipes are we talking about here? His grandmother's recipes are really something. He would bring one of these recipes to Christmas every year for 20 years. The thing that always stuck with him was the measurements in his grandmother's recipes. He would always talk about the measurements in his grandmother's recipes and how important they were. People looked at me like I had suggested we try something crazy, like magic beans. They thought the idea of beans was totally ridiculous. The idea of beans just seemed so silly to them. Magic beans were not something they wanted to try. I had this feeling that something was not quite right. Dimitri's way of doing things was not randomal. He always used cups. The temperature was 350 degrees. He baked for 45 minutes. It was all based on the number 60, which is a base 60 system. I think the professor from Babylon was actually onto something. He was just looking at it from the angle. The Babylonian professor was looking in the wrong place. I went home. I looked through old Christmas photos and videos and stuff. I found all of them. There were 20 Christmas recipes from 20 years. They were all in order from when they happened. The Christmas recipe from 2004 was for a honey cake. The last Christmas recipe was for cabbage rolls from year. I have all 20 Christmas recipes. Now dot to cups is the same as 2. When we are talking about base 60, the number 350 is different. I had to check it. It is 5 times 60 plus 50, and 45 minutes was already in the unit we needed, so that was easy. The base 60 system is what made the number 350 become 5 times 60 plus 50. I changed everything into something. I changed all the measurements and all the temperatures and all the timings. Then I changed those into a kind of number called base 10. After that, I changed those numbers into letters and symbols on the computer, which are called characters. This was really crazy. This was really smart. This was the kind of thing that Dimitri would do. There are 20 recipes. Each one has its set of measurements. They are all written down in the order that he gave them to me 1 year after another. He also gave me a password that's 127 characters long. It looks like it does not make any sense. It is actually very special. The password represents 20 years of Christmas dinners at his house. All the stories he told me about his grandmother and the love that he feels for her. The password is like a math problem. It is really about love. The 20 recipes and the password are all about Christmas dinners and the stories about his grandmother and the love that is in the mathematics of the password. I was sitting in Dimitri's office. It was really late, like 3 a.m. I typed something into the terminal. My fingers were shaking. When I typed the character .enter, the screen came on. It said, "Welcome," someone who actually took the time to listen. Then a second message showed up that said, "Baba always said that the secret ingredient was attention. You actually paid attention to things. The company now belongs to you. Use the company to feed people around the world, just like Baba fed us." Di sat back in Dimitri's chair and cried. For him, for his grandmother, for all those Christmas dinners where I was the only one who didn't check my phone while he talked.